Welcome to this first episode of the 21st Century Christian. I am your host, Karyn Beach, and this first show is going to be a little bit different from the rest of the shows in that most of the shows are going to have an interview format. I'm going to interview someone, we'll talk, and we'll end with our favorite verse and why that's our favorite verse and the fact that it means something to us. We'll do all that. This show is going to be different in that we're talking about me. And the reason we're talking about me isn't because I'm full of myself. It's because I want you, dear listener, to understand as we go forward why I might be asking some of the questions I'm asking, why I might be approaching certain topics the way that I am. And I want you to get to know me a little bit because I want to invite you and consider this your invitation to join me on my faith walk and allow me to join you on yours. And I want to tell you a little bit about that walk up until now. So I'll get started. I'm going to do the whole format of the show. So first, let's give a little Bible trivia, and then we'll go ahead and get started. This show, when you're listening to, is sponsored by Concepts and Clarity, which is my company. And right now we're selling 3 courses on conceptsandclarity.com, all about the sheep, Jesus and money, and beyond Proverbs 31, beyond the Proverbs 34 woman. And each of those courses is designed with the Concepts and Clarity mission in mind. And that mission is to help 21st century Christians understand the Bible. So you can get those courses over at conceptsandclarity.com, and on the homepage, you'll find a free lesson. Each course is made up of 4 to 5 lessons. You'll get a lesson a week so you don't get overwhelmed. But if you want to know what a lesson is like, right now there's a free lesson on the homepage about 5 things that we hear often, 5 phrases, but aren't in the Bible. So that's conceptsandclarity.com. Check it out. Oh,
Bet you didn't know that.
okay. So we want to talk about the Bible. The Bible was actually written in 3 continents. It was written in Asia, Africa, and Europe. And over almost 1,500 to 2,000 years. And here's the interesting part. Only within the last 100 of those years was the New Testament written, 50 to 100 years. Everything else, Old Testament. Over a millennia to write the Old Testament, less than 100 years to write the New. So think about that. And we'll go ahead. I've done my sponsorship. I've done my Bible trivia. Now it's time to do the lesson. And this week, instead of interviewing someone, I'm just talking to you about my faith journey. Not the whole Karyn Beach story, but my faith journey. And it pretty much started when I was about 11, when I went to the front of Liberty Hill Baptist Church in Cleveland, Ohio, and to Pastor Blanton E. Harbor, gave my life to the Lord. I gave my life to the Lord when I was 11 because I did believe, as I still believe, that Jesus is Lord, that he gave himself on this Christ and died for my sins. And like any early Christian, I believe that Jesus answered prayers in the affirmative. Therefore, if I prayed for something, it should happen. That's what I thought as a very young, very new Christian. So when my mother began to get sick, she had diabetes and she lost her sight. She developed kidney failure. She was in and out of the hospital. She was taking about 30 pills a day. And I know because I was her main caregiver, when she wasn't in the hospital. But I was praying for her to get better. And she didn't. She died 2 weeks after the end of 10th grade. So instead of leaning on God, I took that to mean that God didn't really care. He didn't really he put the world in order. He died for my sins, but he wasn't involved in my everyday life. He didn't know who Karyn Beach was. Whoever Karyn Beach was, whatever Karyn was going to do was going to have to be based on Karyn. And God didn't have anything to do with it. That's what I believed. And so I got through high school, I got through college, I went through my 20s, and I created a life for myself. I got into my 30s and noticed I might have had a problem with depression, but I tried to deal with that myself. And I dealt with everything myself. Well, I traveled the world. I wrote a short script that turned into a short film starring Danny Glover. Um, I won $100,000 on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I went to California and I attended an award ceremony and shot the crap with Jeff Goldblum. I've done a lot of really interesting things. One thing I didn't do, and I would not have been able to do all those things had I had a child, had I been married and had a child. And I got into my 40s and I realized I probably wasn't going to get married and have a child. And that affected me because I didn't really try to do it. I've never been like boy crazy, and I've never been, oh, I need a man. I need a man. I've never been that woman. So, um, it kind of crept up on me. And I prayed and I asked God, I said, okay, if I'm not meant to have a child, then I'm not meant to have a child. If I'm not meant to have a husband, I'm not meant to have a husband. If I'm not meant to have these things, take the desire away. So that was my prayer. And then out of nowhere, because I had a shaky hand, I went to get an MRI. And they didn't find out why my hand shook, but they found something that alarmed them. And they asked me to take 3 more MRIs, 3 more long, brutal MRIs. And the result was that I had MS. Um, I never had any symptoms. It seemed like an odd diagnosis, but I had MS. And that's a debilitating disease. And that kind of stuck with me. And I didn't know what to do with that. It was really unexpected. So I'm dealing with that diagnosis, possibly not having a family and kids, and then my job. I worked with a group of women who became pretty much a bunch of bullies, and they bullied me. And one of the bullies was my boss, who I tried to go to talk to about the bullying. And she pretty much called me into a meeting with the head bully and told me to get over it. Didn't chastise the bully for bullying me. Didn't apologize to me for the fact that she was one of the bullies, but she pretty much just told me to get over it. I left, and that night I updated my resume and started looking for jobs because I'm like, I'm not going to work here. Um, I thought I had a job, and um, the HR woman called me and said, "Well, when you start," I mean, everything was in line for me to have this job. And one day, after being bullied again, I went home and I got the call that I couldn't believe. I got a call that said I didn't get the job. In that moment, I can tell you, everything came crashing around me. I was still going to be surrounded by these bullies. I was still going to be dealing with MS alone. I still wasn't going to have a family of my own or a husband of my own. And all of a sudden, it just got so heavy and it got so dark. And I remember literally falling to my knees in my bedroom, trying to pray. And I remember hearing a voice say, "Who the F do you think is listening to you? Nobody's listening to you. Nobody cares." And that voice said the words that echoed in my head for the next hour. It's always going to be like this. It's always going to be like this. And at this time, a friend of mine called me and she knew, she could tell I was crying. I was having a hard time. I told her what was going on. And she said, "I'm coming over." And she lived about an hour away. So I ran upstairs and I just started writing because I'm a writer. So anytime things are bothering me, I write. And I didn't realize what I was writing at first, but I realized later what I was writing was a suicide note. I was apologizing to my father. I was apologizing to my Lord because I knew I wasn't supposed to do what I was about to do. And I had a bunch of pills and I took two handfuls with Garza Moscato and I sat there. And the last thing I remember thinking was, well, that didn't work. Then I woke up in the hospital and I also called my friend back and I said, "Hey, I'm fine. I'm fine. You don't need to be here." But she came anyway. And I woke up in the hospital. They were trying to put an IV in my neck because of really small collapsing veins. And when I woke up, they asked me how I was, and my friend was still there. And she had read my letter, and she just looked at me and said, "Karyn, tell them the truth." And I did. They had me on suicide watch for about um 14, 16 hours until they found a place to send me. And I spent a week in what we affectionately call, the people that were there, the nut hut. And I left with a prescription, a diagnosis of a depression. And I didn't realize at the time how many people I affected, how many people actually cared about me. But there were a lot, and I had to start what I call Karyn's apology tour, where I had to explain to everyone why I did what I did, why their love wasn't enough, and what I had to, and how I wasn't going to do that again. I wasn't going to put them through that again. So I was literally going friend by friend doing this. And when I talked to one of my girlfriends, I said, well, she mentioned God, and I mentioned that God doesn't care. God is way off doing his thing. And she said, what are you talking about? And I explained to her that I stopped believing in a personal God when my mom died. And she said, but you don't get it. And I said, get what? She said, God has always been there for you. He's always been there for you. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, your mom died, but all I ever hear you talk about is your Aunt Bessie and how she's there for you and how she's been like a mom to you. She said, how many states have you lived in? And I was like, California, Iowa, Arizona, Maryland, all before I got to North Carolina. And she was like, and you've never been in a bad situation and you've never been around bad people? She was like, who do you think? Why do you think that happened? And I was like, wow, that is a way to look at it. She was like, you went on a game show and won $100,000, 50,000 after taxes. But who's saying that? But she was like, you went on a game show and won a bunch of money. You got your house. She was like, your life is a testament to God being there for you. His hand has been on you this whole time. And I thought, wow, I never looked at it like that. I'm like, so you mean to tell me that the God who put everything in motion cares about Karen? I couldn't believe it, but he does. He cares about me. And I couldn't believe that, but I started to. And that started my new path, I ended up getting baptized again because I felt I needed, not that God needed it, but that I needed to put this phase of my life, put this second part of my life. See, now this whole time I've been holding Benji, I just let him go and now he's barking. So you see why I was holding him. But anyway, I saw that God was in my life and that I needed to change. I needed to put God first. I needed to see for myself his role in my life. And the first thing I did is I prayed because by this time I was in my 40s and I said, Lord, if I'm not meant to get married, if I'm not meant to have a kid, take those desires away from me. I prayed it again very seriously. And a few months later, I'm on a plane and there's a kid behind me yelling. And I said, I dodged a bullet with that. And I knew that I had dodged a bullet. And I was like, I don't really even want kids anymore. And since then, I realized I've been good with not being a parent. Now, he still had it in me to be a wife. I didn't know where that was going to come from, but it was still there. So sorry about that. I had to shut the dog up. Um, but I'm on a plane and this kid is crying. And I just casually thought, huh, dodged a bullet with that one, didn't I? And I realized I didn't have that real desire to have a child anymore. And I haven't had that desire. And I realized that not everybody has to have a kid. That's not everybody's call in life. And I'm okay with that. I'm a great aunt. I've had kids in my life. I don't need to physically have a kid to have that blessing. And I still wanted a husband. And I kept praying about that. I'm like, take it away, take it away, take it away. But it still stayed there. So after several more years of not having a husband, I decided I was going to pull a Sarah. You know, Sarah in the Bible was told she was going to have a baby, even though she was old. And when it didn't happen right away and she got older, she was like, yeah, I'm going to give you Hagar and you can do your thing through her. And it ended up being really messy. But she was like, okay, I'm going to do what you said you were going to do. I'm not going to wait for you to do it. I'm going to do it. So I said, you know what, God, it's okay. You're not going to give me a husband. I'm okay with that. So I stopped dating and I stopped doing everything, but I enjoyed my life. I had my kickboxing. I had my podcast at the time. I had salsa dance lessons. I had great friends. I had a job at this point that I really enjoyed. So my life was full. I had Jake, my little dog. Um, Everything was good. Didn't miss not having a man. You know, it's was not part of my plan. So I ended up taking a class at my church on finances because finances has been my Achilles heel. It's been my downfall. I never have money saved. I never have anything done. This will become important in about 2 minutes. So 20 people signed up for this finance course. 3 of us showed up. Me, an older woman who was a greeter at the church, and um a girl that I ended up becoming friends with. So the woman that was a greeter at the church, I used to go to a satellite church and be a greeter there that closed down. I was not a greeter at the main church. She got me to be a greeter at the main church. And the other girl and I became friends, and she had asked me to go to her daughter's 15th birthday party. So I went, and we, didn't think anything of it. But she shared pictures with her friend, um, a guy in Ghana who was a policeman. And I guess it was slow that night, and his coworker was looking over his shoulder at the pictures. And one of the pictures had me in it. And he said, well, who is that? And she's like, oh, that's my friend Karen. He's like, I would like to meet her. And so she asked me if I wanted to meet this Ghanaian guy in West Africa. I said, no, I'm done getting my heart broken. I've had my heart broken a million times in the States. Don't think I need to start going to other countries and have it broken. So, thank you, but no, thank you. I'm good. And so she told him that, and it should have been done right then. But something kept putting him in my head. He kept coming back in my head. And she mentioned him to me a few more times. And I thought, well, maybe she sends me a picture. He'll be ugly, it'll be easy, and we can just forget about it. So she sent me a picture, and I thought, dang, I gotta meet this guy. He's actually kind of cute. So, ugh, I hate this. So, in a WhatsApp call, a video call with me, him, my friend, and her friend, we all talked. And from that point on, he and I talked every day. And I realized I was sort of falling for him. And I prayed and I said, God, I'm trying to walk your walk. I'm trying to do things your way. I didn't want to date, but you brought this guy to me. You wouldn't let him out of my mind. If this is the right guy, give me a sign. And he gave me a sign. There are three words I've always wanted to hear from a man, and they're not "I love you." And we were talking one night. Now, mind you, this guy asked for my dad's phone number. He called my dad. They developed a relationship. I remember the first time he called my dad. I'm talking to my dad because at the time we talked 2, 3 times a week. And my dad's like, I talked to somebody. I said, Who'd you talk to, Dad? He said, I talked to your boyfriend. I talked to your boyfriend. I talked to your boyfriend. And I'm like, seriously, Dad? Anyway, I met over the phone, over the video chat. I met his daughter. I met his family, his parents. He met my friends. So, and everything was on video chat. So I was not being catfish. I was introduced to him by someone that knew him and someone that knew me. So it wasn't a catfish situation. But 2 days after I prayed that prayer for a sign, we were talking, and out of nowhere, he said, I got you. I just want you to know that you don't have to go through things alone anymore. I got you. And those were the three words I always wanted to hear from a man. I never said so because once you tell somebody something, that's what they're going to do. But I said, really? And we kept talking and things kept progressing. And we were talking one night and he mentioned marriage. And I thought, oh, maybe it's a cultural thing. So I let it slide. So a couple more days passed and he mentioned marriage again. And I thought, what's going on? The third time it happened, I thought, I need to say something. So I said, I don't know, maybe it's a cultural thing. But in America, we don't mention the M word unless we're serious about getting M'd. And he said, well, of course I'm serious. He said, I want to marry you. And I was like, what, huh? I was like, would you? Who did that? Because really I couldn't speak because I think I might have actually said, but did ya? Who ya? Anyway, he said, of course I want to marry you. He said, if we get married in Ghana, I will take care of everything. All you have to do is get here. And while we were on the phone that night, I said, does my dress have to be white? He was like, no, it can be any color you want. I said, it'll be red. And as we're talking, I Googled red Ghanaian wedding dress. And I found this beautiful dress. I said, I think I just found my wedding dress. He was like, send it to me and send your measurements. I'll get it done. I said, what about a ring? He said, what ring do you want? Googling again. Found the wedding ring I wanted and sent him that. Went ahead, I needed to get my vaccines taken. I needed to get my passport renewed. Got busy doing all that. Had to spend a fortune on a flight. Did that. And in the spring, I had started a new contract job. And I told them in September, because I wanted to get married on my birthday, September 21st. But as fate would have it, it's a holiday. I'm like, it's about time. Somewhere is a holiday. So we got married the day before. Um, But I'm like, I need to leave to get married. I'm going to be away for 3 weeks. So, oh, no problem, no problem. If you're not watching this on the video, I just did a big eye roll. But story continues. So I got everything done. And I'm like, wow. He was like, your dress is made. I've got your ring. Da, 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 da. So the day before I'm scheduled to leave, my flight is scheduled. I'm leaving the next day. I get a call from my contract company that my contract has officially been ended. I have no job when I come back. I'm still going to Ghana. I'm still getting married. I can't get all money back on my flight. Even if I could, I'm getting married. I'm in love. So I fly over to Ghana and it's beautiful. And my dress is beautiful. And we're staying right on the Atlantic Ocean. And it's beautiful. And we have people that are driving us and taking us around, and everything is great. And I get married. My father couldn't make it because my father was in his 80s and he was dealing with health issues at the time. So the leader, he's Christian, but he's also a member of a tribe. So he got the guy that was the leader of his tribe to give me away. And we did a little ceremony to make me his daughter the day before. And at the end of the ceremony, he was like, "This means until I die, you are a princess." I was like, "A princess?" Oh, thank gosh, it's about time. I've been a princess all my life, but now I'm really a princess. So, got married, came back home, um, didn't have a job, started looking for work. I've never had a problem finding a job. Um, I have not worked since I've been back. I got married in September of 2023. So I've been out of work for 2 years. Why I started this? Because I'm like, why not start a business? I can't find work, which is just bizarre. But I had 3 car payments left. My car was almost repossessed. I couldn't drive it. I couldn't take it out of my garage. Finally, I got some money to pay that, so I owned my car. My father was diagnosed in 2024, finally, with dementia. I knew that had been a factor for a while, but the final diagnosis came in. I went back to Cleveland to visit my dad. The day after I came back, I got a notice, not from my mortgage company, but from my HOA that was behind on HOA dues. And if I didn't pay them $5,000 within 2 weeks, they were going to take my house. I didn't have $5,000. I didn't have any money. Remember earlier, I said I'm bad at savings. All of this could have been avoided had I had money in a savings account, but I didn't. So I sold my house in 2 weeks. Took bottom of the barrel offer from a company and then found out that I owed $50,000 to Wells Fargo. So I should have cleared over $300,000 from my house. I didn't even clear 100,000. On the day that I went to fill out the paperwork and close on the sale of the house, the day after that happened, my dad died. No job, now no house, and no dad. Michael said, "Come to Ghana." and recover. We didn't really talk about Ghana. At this point, I just wanted to get out of the States. It was not a good place for me to be. So I sold my car that I just paid off and I went to Ghana. And I was there for 6 months. And Michael works all the time. We want him to get here so that he can get his um education in another field. He wants to get a certification, which will take 6 months, and get another job. He doesn't have weekends off right now. He doesn't get paid overtime. It's not a good situation. So we want him to be here. And I said, in order for you to come here, I need to be there. I need to be back in the States to make this happen. I came back in February and all holy hell blew up. It's still blowing up. And I'm still having faith. The woman I was supposed to rent a room from, because I'm a decent person. I try to be a good person. So I assume everybody else is too. And so I sent her the security deposit. I sent her my first month's rent just to show her that I'm serious about renting this room. My husband was like, "Why'd you do that? You shouldn't have sent her any money until you got there." He was right, because she claimed she was going to pick me up from the airport and take me to the house so I would be able to start with my room. She left me at the airport. Benji and I ended up spending the night in baggage claim. She didn't pick me up. She claimed she got COVID and her heart is bothering her and all this stuff. It's been excuse after excuse. Basically, this heifer still owes me $1,500 that I'll probably never see again. I ended up being scammed. Um, I don't really have family support. My friends were able to keep me in a room that I was renting for over a month. And then I ran out of friends who ran out of money to help me. My husband can't help me because the exchange rate between Ghana and America is such that the money he makes when he exchanges it to dollars is worth next to nothing. If you think about it, think about all the people that come to this country who send money home. They can send money home because that money, that American dollar, is worth a lot more when they exchange it than it is the other way around. So I was in a bad way. I couldn't afford the room I was at, even though it had a low weekly rent. I couldn't afford it. I ended up being at a women's shelter. It was a Christian-based women's shelter, and it's actually a very nice shelter. It's super clean. The food is amazing. Um, we have Bible study every week. We go to church every Sunday. I was close to the bus line and the free trolley. So I was still looking for work, and I started working on Concepts and Clarity, my business. Um, Things were coming along. I was working on my courses that are currently for sale on my site. Um, but nothing was going anywhere. So I had prayed to God. I said, "Lord, how long am I going to be in this shelter?" And one morning I woke up with an answer. And he said, "You will be here until you finish your courses and your business plan. So I got to work. I probably did, because I'm a professional instructional designer. So I probably did what would have been 3, 4 months of work in 3, 4 weeks. And I got everything done. I started working on my business plan. And I called SCORE, Service Corps of Retired Executives, and I got a mentor, and she's been amazing. Um, and I finished my business plan. I gave it to my mentor, and I said in my prayer, "Yep, God, I'm done. Did my business plan, did my courses. I'm all done. You said that that's all I had to do." Well, that weekend I got a call from um someone who's kind of family, but and who needed me to come home to help take care of one of her relatives and to do a caregiver type role. And they were like, "You can live for free. We'll pay you a small monthly stipend, weekly stipend." And I came home because they were like, "Well, you'll have time off. You'll be able to make money. You'll do this and that and the other." And I came back, you know, with my dog, because my dog couldn't stay with me at the shelter. So he had to go to a friend's house. So I'm like, I'll get to be with Benji again, and that excites me. So I came back to Cleveland, where I said I'd never go, but we make plans that God laughs. And I came back here only to find there was a lot of stuff they didn't tell me about. And if I had known that, everything I know now, I probably wouldn't have come here. But I felt, and I still feel, that I'm following God and I'm where God wants me to be. And I'll be here until whatever He needs me to do here is done. I don't like it here. I would rather not be here, but I do feel like I'm here for a very specific reason, and I need to fulfill that reason. Um, and then hopefully I can go back to Charlotte. I can go back to trying to get my husband here. If I can't, we'll move somewhere else. Um, but that's my story. Um, Back home. And let me say this, and I did a Facebook post for my friends about this. There's a difference between history and home. My history is here where I am now. My home is where I'm trying to go back to. I didn't grow up there. I grew up here. This is my history. When my husband gets here, we will come to Cleveland to see where I went to school, where I was raised, yada, yada, yada. But Charlotte is the place that I've chosen to call home. And that's not the same for most people. For most people, history and home is the same place. For me, they're different. And I look forward to the day when I can go back home. But I'm following God. Maybe I'll go back there. Maybe I won't. Maybe He has a different set of plans for me. But that's the way things are. So that's the way things are. And I need to finish up this episode. So I'm going to go get my favorite Bible verse, and we'll end with that. I will just say again, my company is Concepts and Clarity. conceptsandclarity.com is where you will go to find my courses on sheep, on money, and on women. They're all there. There's a free course on my home. There's a free lesson on my homepage. Each course is made up of 4 to 5 lessons. You get a lesson a week sent directly to your email because I don't want you to be overwhelmed with everything. Here you go. I don't want to do that to you. So I'm going to send you a lesson a week until you have all the lessons. And you'll get a handout with the lesson with questions for journaling, with a list of all the Bible verses mentioned in the lesson. But right now, there's a free lesson if you want to see what it's like on my homepage, conceptsandclarity.com, that deals with 5 things that aren't in the Bible. They sound good. You think they might be biblical, but they're not. Guess what? Cleanliness is not next to godliness. But what is? Take my free lesson and find out. Okay, so we're going to end with a virtuous verse because when we're interviewing people, I always like to end with what verse speaks to them, what verse they use, because maybe that will be a verse that helps you. A verse that helps me is 1 Peter 5:7, and it says, casting all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. All my Bible verses come from the English Standard Version. Unless I tell you different, that's where it comes from. So 1 Peter 5:7, casting all your care upon him, for he cares for you. Remember, for the first part of my faith walk, my faith journey, I didn't really believe that God did care about me. I didn't believe he really knew me. I thought that everything was going to be up to me. And I acted accordingly. Everything is up to me. But this is a verse that speaks to me. I have to cast everything upon him because he really does care about me. He wants to do what's best for me. And that a lot of times blows my mind. This weekend, because I'm always on my laptop. I'm on my laptop 24/7. And I'm on my laptop and I decide I want a cup of coffee. So I get a cup of hot coffee, and guess what? I spilled it on my laptop. It was a nightmare. I took it and I got it. I tried to fix it. I did what Google told me to do, and then I had to wait 24 hours. And my imagination went to what's going to happen. I'm not going to be able to use my laptop. Whoa, it's going to be so bad. But I cast my cares upon him because he cares for me. And I said, Lord, please help me. Please help me. And I found that song by Hezekiah Walker, Every Praise. And I started singing it. Every praise is to my God. You can look it up because I'm not gonna sing. And I started to do what I needed to do, which is focus on God. And that's what I did. 24 hours later, I turned on my computer and it worked. In that instance, God, my affirmative prayer was answered. And I think it was answered correctly because I was focused on him. Now, the situation I'm in, I don't know how that's going to work out, but I do know that I need to focus on God. When it comes to my current situation, I have to cast my cares on him because he cares for me. And that's it. So join me next week when we are actually going to talk to an actress about her faith walk. And I love this discussion because it also deals with food and faith, the combination of both food addiction and how it can be helped by faith, memorizing your Bible scriptures and having those close at hand, close to your heart. So that is going to be next week. Should you want to donate to me, you can do that at Karyn with a Y, Karyn Beach, like by the ocean, 921. That's my cash app, Karyn Beach 921. You can go to my site, Concepts and Clarity. You can join my newsletter, which will go out once a month. You'll be notified of new courses, podcast guests. There'll be inspirational content, just like you can find over at my blog at conceptsandclarity.com. So I will see you back on my podcast next week. Hope to see you over at the site. So I will see you then. Until next time. Bye-bye.